At 83 years old, I died with $30 million still in my bank accounts after giving away $350 million. If you're over 50, you're standing at the exact crossroads where I failed. You've spent decades building something. You've accumulated more than you'll ever spend, and every day you wait to act on what you know matters is a day you'll never get back. I built the largest steel empire in the world, sold it to J.P. Morgan for $480 million in 1901. I was 65 years old. That sale made me the richest man in America. But here's what nobody tells you about becoming wealthy beyond measure. The money isn't the hard part. Figuring out what to do with it before you die is. I had 18 years to get it right, 18 years to prove that I meant what I'd written 33 years earlier. I gave away 90% of everything I owned, built 2,509 libraries, changed millions of lives, and I still failed. Let me tell you about the most important thing I ever wrote, and the 33 years I spent ignoring it. On one of the last nights of 1868, I sat at my desk in the St. Nicholas Hotel in New York. I was 33 years old. 20 years earlier, I'd come to America from Scotland as the son of a poor weaver. My family borrowed $20 for passage. Now, at 33, I was worth $400,000. My annual income from investments was over $50,000. I should have been satisfied. I should have been grateful. Instead, I was terrified. I took out a piece of paper and wrote myself a memo. This is what I said. 33 and an income of $50,000 per annum. By this time, 2 years, I can arrange all my business to secure at least $50,000 per annum. Beyond this, never earn. Make no effort to increase fortune, but spend the surplus each year for benevolent purposes. Then I wrote the words that should have changed everything. The amassing of wealth is one of the worst species of idolatry. No idol more debasing than the worship of money. I was going to retire at 35, move to Oxford, become a student, devote my life to learning and giving. Everything above $50,000 a year would go to the public good. Have you ever written down what you know you should do, then spent decades not doing it? I kept that memo, put it in my desk. Then, I ignored it for 33 years. At 35, I didn't retire. I built more steel mills. At 40, I was richer and busier than ever. At 50, I'd become exactly the man I'd warned myself not to be. At 60, I was the steel king of America, working harder than I'd worked at 30. The memo sat in my desk, undisturbed, but disturbing. What warning are you ignoring right now? Not the vague someday plans, not the things you'll do when you retire. I'm talking about the specific thing you wrote down, or thought clearly about years ago. The thing you know matters more than the work you're doing. The thing you keep postponing because you're not quite ready, don't quite have enough, haven't quite secured your position. Let me tell you what happened during those 33 years. While I ignored my own warning, I became the richest man in America. I built an empire of steel that transformed the country. I revolutionized an industry, and I betrayed everything I believed at 33. The steel business consumed me. Every expansion led to another. Every profit demanded reinvestment. Every competitor required a response. I told myself I was building something important, that my work mattered, that I'd give it all away. Eventually. How many years have you been telling yourself you'll act when the time is right? It's the seduction of one more year, one more deal, one more achievement, the belief that if you just work a little longer, accumulate a little more, then when you finally do the meaningful work, you'll be able to do it on a bigger scale. That's the lie that cost me 33 years. I wrote The Gospel of Wealth in 1889. I was 54 years old. The essay made me famous for my ideas about philanthropy. People praised my wisdom, my moral clarity. But I was still running the steel company, still accumulating, still postponing. I knew the truth at 33. I wrote about it brilliantly at 54. I didn't act on it until I was 65. Those 33 years are gone, forever. That delay cost me something I can never recover. Not money, time. The only thing wealth can't buy back is the years you spend acquiring it. Here's why I waited. And this is the hardest truth to tell. I was afraid. Afraid of losing power. Afraid of stepping away from the game, afraid that without the steel company, without the wealth accumulation, without the empire building, I would be nothing. The idol of money is a demanding god. It doesn't let go easily. I was addicted to the game, to the challenge, to seeing the numbers grow, to being the man everyone else measured themselves against. My mother's ambitions became my ambitions. Her drive to escape poverty became my drive to become the richest man in the world. That's what fear looks like. That's what happens when you confuse accumulation with purpose, when you believe that who you are depends on what you own. Fear stole 33 years of my real work. Think about what you've known for years but haven't acted on. Not the vague someday plans, the specific thing you've been postponing. But here's what you need to understand. The delay wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I discovered when I finally started giving my fortune away. There are 3 ways to dispose of wealth. I tried them all. 2 of them are worse than useless. This next section will change how you think about everything you've built. Because it's not about how much you have, it's about what you do with it while you're alive to see the results. In 1889, I published an essay called The Gospel of Wealth. I was 54 years old, still 12 years away from acting on my own advice. But in that essay, I laid out the 3 modes of disposing of surplus wealth. Every person who accumulates more than they need must choose one of these 3 paths. 2 of them disgrace you. 1 redeems you. Here's what I wrote. There are but 3 modes in which surplus wealth can be disposed of. You can leave it to your family. You can bequeath it at death for public purposes. Or you can administer it yourself during your lifetime. 3 paths. Let me tell you what each one means. The first path is leaving your fortune to your heirs. This is what most wealthy men do. They work their entire lives to accumulate more than their children could ever spend. Then they leave it all to those children. And they call this love. It's not love, it's cruelty. When you hand your children millions of dollars they didn't earn, you rob them of the only thing that makes life meaningful: the struggle, the necessity, the requirement to develop their own capabilities. Inherited wealth breeds weakness, creates dependence. It tells your children that their own efforts don't matter. I made sure my daughter wouldn't suffer this fate. She received enough to live modestly. Nothing more. Which path are you on right now? The second path is bequeathing your fortune for public purposes at your death. This sounds noble. Endow universities, found charities, leave money for hospitals and libraries. But here's the truth about posthumous giving. Money left at death isn't given, it's torn from you. When you die, you don't part with your wealth. Death parts you from it. There's no virtue in that, no wisdom, no judgment. You're not making a gift. You're having your possessions distributed according to instructions you wrote when you couldn't predict the needs of the moment. Posthumous giving is vanity. You're trying to buy immortality, trying to have your name on buildings and institutions after you're gone. But you won't be there to see if your money is used wisely. You won't be able to correct course if it's wasted. You won't know if you made a difference. If you died tomorrow, would your wealth create the legacy you imagine? The third path is the only honorable one. Administer your surplus wealth during your lifetime. This is hard. It requires wisdom. It requires the same intelligence and judgment you used to accumulate the fortune. You have to decide not just how much to give, but where to give it, how to give it. You have to build systems, create conditions, make sure the money doesn't do more harm than good, and you have to do all of this while you're alive, while you can see the results, while you can learn from mistakes, while your presence can guide the gift to its highest use. When I finally sold my steel company in 1901, I was 65 years old. J.P. Morgan paid $480 million. My share was $225 million. I knew exactly what I had to do. I'd written about it 12 years earlier. I'd understood it at 33, 32 years before that. Now, I finally had to live it. Are you building something that needs you alive to direct it? Let me tell you what I did wrong when I started giving money away. I thought it would be easy. Write checks, fund worthy causes, build institutions. It was harder than building the steel empire. The first thing I learned is that most people don't want to help themselves. They want handouts. When I announced I'd give away my fortune, I was flooded with requests. Everyone had a cause. Everyone needed money. Most of them wanted me to do everything for them. I decided on a principle. I would only help those who were willing to help themselves. My money would be a ladder, not a crutch. A tool for those determined to climb, not a cushion for those content to remain where they were. That's when I started building libraries. Let me tell you why libraries mattered so much to me. When I was 13 years old, working as a bobbin boy in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, there was a man named Colonel James Anderson who owned about 400 books. Every Saturday evening he opened his personal library to working boys. You could borrow one book at a time. I knocked on his door the first time wearing my factory clothes, smelling of cotton mill dust. His servant turned me away. Said the library was for respectable boys, not mill workers. I went home and I wrote a letter to the Pittsburgh newspaper. I argued that knowledge shouldn't depend on your father's occupation, that working boys needed books more than anyone, because we had no other path to education. Colonel Anderson read that letter. He changed his mind. He let me in. Those 400 books changed my life. I read history, science, biography, philosophy. I educated myself in that library because I never had the chance to finish school. Those books made me who I became. That's why I built 2,509 libraries. Not for my name on buildings, for boys like I was, working boys who needed books. But I didn't build complete libraries. I built buildings, The communities had to provide the land. They had to pass a tax levy to support operations. They had to demonstrate that they were willing to maintain what I helped them start. My money wasn't charity. It was a match, a multiplier. Between 1901 and 1919, I funded 2,509 library buildings worldwide. 1,681 of them were in the United States. Each one was built according to this principle. I would provide the building if the community would provide the will. But I didn't just build libraries. I founded Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, endowed the Carnegie Institution for Science in Washington, created pension funds for teachers, funded research institutions. Every gift followed the same principle: help those who will help themselves. And here's what I learned about giving at this scale. You have to be as ruthless about giving as you were about earning. You have to say no constantly. You have to watch for waste. You have to measure results. Foolish giving does more harm than no giving at all. From 1901 to 1919, I gave away $350 million. 90% of everything I'd accumulated. Every year, the fortune generated more income. Every year, I had to give faster. It was a race I couldn't win. 3 paths. Only one matters. You can leave your wealth to your family and watch it destroy their ambition. You can bequeath it at death and pretend that counts as generosity. Or you can administer it now, while you're alive, to direct it wisely, while you can see the results, while your presence can multiply its impact. But here's what you need to understand about those 18 years from 65 to 83. I succeeded at building institutions, and I failed at my most important mission. Let me tell you why both things are true. The work I cared about most was peace. I believed that war was obsolete, that nations could resolve conflicts through arbitration and international law. I funded the Peace Palace in The Hague, created the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace with $10 million. I spent millions more advocating for treaties, for diplomacy, for systems that would make war impossible. In 1914, World War I began. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd believed about human progress and the power of reason seemed to collapse. The nations I thought were civilized tore each other apart. The systems I'd helped build failed to prevent the catastrophe. I was 79 years old. I'd given away hundreds of millions, built institutions, changed millions of lives, and I couldn't stop a war. For 5 years I watched the slaughter. For 5 years I kept working, kept funding peace initiatives, kept believing that reason would prevail. The Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919. I died 2 months later. August 11th, I was 83 years old. My peace mission was incomplete. The war had happened anyway, and I still had $30 million in my accounts. After I died, that $30 million went to the Carnegie Corporation. It's still working, still funding causes I believed in. So in one sense, the money found its purpose. But here's the truth I learned too late. You can't delegate legacy. The money I gave away while I was alive multiplied because I was there to direct it. I could correct mistakes, adjust strategy, respond to feedback. The institutions succeeded because I applied the same judgment to giving that I'd applied to business. But the $30 million I didn't give? That was torn from me at death. If I'd retired at 35 like I planned, I'd have had 48 years to direct my wealth. Instead, I waited until 65 and got 18. Those 18 years were fuller and richer than all the years that came before, but they weren't enough. You can't make up for lost decades with a burst of frenzied giving at the end. Legacy is built slowly, through judgment, through learning what works and what doesn't, through the compound effect of good decisions over time. I waited too long, and even 18 years of total commitment wasn't enough to finish what I'd started. What would you do with 18 focused years? If you knew you had 18 years left, would you still be accumulating? Or would you finally start building the legacy that requires your presence? So, here's what you need to understand. Knowledge without action is worse than ignorance. I knew at 33 what I should do. I didn't act until 65. Those 33 years are gone forever. There are only 3 paths for surplus wealth. 2 disgrace you. Only one, administering it while you live, creates lasting good. And even 18 focused years aren't enough if you wait too long to start. The man who dies rich dies disgraced. I said that. I meant it. I tried desperately not to be that man. And I came closer than most. But I still had 30 million left when my time ran out. But let me show you what did work. Let me show you why those 18 years mattered, despite my failures. I visited a library in a small Pennsylvania mill town in 1903. Stone facade, reading room filled with afternoon light, shelves lined with books. I walked in quietly. Didn't announce myself. A man approached me near the biography section. Rough hands, worn coat, face lined by years of factory work. He didn't know who I was. He held up the book he was carrying, pride in his eyes. He said, "My boy and I come here every Saturday. He's learning to read. Because of this place, my son will have chances I never had." I looked past him and saw his son, maybe 8 years old, sitting at a table with a book open in front of him, mouthing the words silently. That's what living giving looks like. You see the faces. You meet the man with rough hands and his son learning to read. You don't imagine impact in the abstract. You witness it in the particular. That boy is a man now, probably in his 70s if he's still alive. He had chances his father never had because I was there to build that library, because I didn't wait until I was dead to give the money, because I administered my wealth while I could direct it. I failed to stop a war, but I changed that boy's life, and thousands of boys like him. That's the legacy that matters. Not the 30 million I died with, not the peace mission I couldn't complete, but the lives that changed because I acted while I still had time. If you're over 50, you're standing where I stood at 33. You know what matters. The only question is whether you'll wait another 3 decades or whether you'll act now. Legacy isn't about the money you leave. It's about the good you direct while you're alive to see it work, while you can correct course, while your presence multiplies the gift. At 65, I finally started. At 83, I ran out of time. You still have yours. The only legacy that matters is the one you build while you still draw breath.